Hi there, this is Alvin, and welcome to the Kickstart Commerce podcast, where we share search, marketing, and domain investing strategies to help grow your business. In today's episode, our guest is none other than Bar Franek, a developer of all things web and a respected domain investor with a keen eye for identifying undervalued digital assets as an alternative asset class. Today, Bar and I discuss his journey into domain investing and development. We also take a peek into a few of Bar's latest domain sales. And last but not least, Bar shares how he limits and reduces risk when buying and selling domains. So with that, Bar, welcome, and thank you, man, for taking time to join us today.
Thanks for having me, Alvin.
Certainly, and to kick things off, I actually got to go back because, what was it? I think in Steve Webb's interview, I totally butchered my man Bar's handle on Twitter, and he let me know about it. And what was funny about it is he let me know about it after the fact, but I actually knew as soon as I put it live. I was like, oh my man, I said I butchered my man's Twitter handle all the way up. And so it is at PPC BZ. That's right. Because it throws me off because your name actually, I mean, it goes Barman, and there's a part of me that wants to put that in as your social handle, but that's not necessarily it. So it is at PPCBZ.
Correct.
Or said, depending on where you live. But that being said, then one of the things, so we met roughly, well, what was it, a year ago? 2 years ago?
Exactly, a year ago.
Man, with COVID, it feels like 5 to be honest. But so Bar and I actually met, interesting enough, at Rick's Asheville Domainer meetup. There in Asheville, North Carolina last year, and it actually would have fallen on this weekend that we're recording, which is, at the time of this recording, it's July 31st. A Friday, and so obviously they're not having it this year, and who knows about next year, but we'll see what things look like in 2022. Hopefully we'll have it in 2021. But so Rick, if you're listening, we're rooting for you. We are rooting for you. But nevertheless, Bar and I met there, and actually you were listening to the podcast before we even met, right?
Yeah, I was a little starstruck when I first saw you there. Oh, I heard your voice first. I'm like, oh, that voice is familiar.
He was starstruck, and then he was like, where's this guy at? And he looks down. He's like, oh, you. It's like, yeah, I'm down here, 5'5" weather, feeling pretty good. No, it was a great experience though. What did you take from that event?
Well, that was the first domain related meetup, conference / whatever that I've ever been to, and I thought that was a really nice, like, small, intimate experience, meeting with like a lot of like heavy hitters, like people that have been doing this since freaking like 1995 or whatever, like
beginning of time,
beginning of like internet time, and they're literally like OGs because they're all friends with Rick. At least a lot of these people were. So it was really interesting, like meetings like some of the top domainers in the world,
right?
And just trying to like steal their secrets, but kind of there's not many secrets to steal. Like, the game is much different now than it is 30 years ago, but I thought it was just a great experience to meet these people.
Totally. And so did you fly in or drive in?
No, we drove in. It was a little bit of a road trip / business trip, so it took 2 days, but it was fun.
Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, my wife and I, we treated it as a getaway. We did a little personal, did a little business, and it was all good. I can't wait for it to come back.
No, I was sad. I mean, everybody's sad for like COVID, but like, I definitely would have gone again this year.
Right. Now, did you attend did you attend the domain show?
Yeah. So I attended like the first day or two, and then I watched the replays afterwards. I thought that was a great free resource. A lot of great interviews. Yeah, if you're into domains and you haven't watched all the replays, then shame on you.
Well, and I was telling, I said, man, for the cost of what, like the traffic, what Merge, even NamesCon in person, the domain show, I'm like, man, it's just a fraction of the cost. Whether you, at the time of this recording, it's like $39, $99, $199. I'm like, man, even if you add that up and you bought 3 tickets and just gave them away, it is interesting to me that I'm like, man, spend that $200 to get access to some of the greatest minds in the world around this topic, folks that you would otherwise not even know about, or in some cases be able to, email them, tweet them, and have them respond, as well as being able to just share their experience. So if you haven't got involved in that, like, really head over to thedomainshow.com. Now, Bart, with NamesCon is around the corner. It's coming up in September. Will you attend it?
Is it an online version?
Yeah, it's an online.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, first I want to say shout out to Paige Howe for putting the domain show together.
Certainly. So Paige, there's your shout out, brother.
He's a great host of that entire show. He knows how to moderate the entire thing. But for NamesCon, yeah, I'm interested. Never been to NamesCon. Might as well be online for the first one.
Yeah, and it is a fun experience there in person, and so I'm actually looking forward. I saw the NamesCon video. They did like a 90-second video of what to expect, and their platform is certainly looking stellar in terms of just the interactivity that it's going to allow. As well as just the given price point, which in-person conferences, it's a struggle. That's why, I was encouraged to see someone like yourself attend such an event like Rick's, because Rick's event, for likely the first time domain investor, who's just trying to figure things out, that's an expensive investment to make into such a trip like that. And you may not have even had a domain sale yet.
Yeah. So I thought, at this point, I'm probably like a year into domain investing. So if I'm spending, $100 here, like $1,000 there on domains, like if I put together, a couple $1,000 just to do the whole trip, like, airfare, or not airfare, but like renting a car, hotel room, like I figured it'd be worth it to intimately meet, some of the best domainers in the world. So it's kind of like a little bit of a risk analysis. There was really no reason not to do it.
Not a man, that's good. And so, obviously we've been kind of chatting just to kind of let listeners know or understand how we know one another. So, just kind of kick things off in terms of with the show. Bar, let's briefly share, at a high level with our listeners, just a bit about yourself, who you are, what your professional and personal background is.
So I started life as a web designer, doing like regular old HTML, CSS, doing that for small businesses, building little not crappy, but decent little one-off jobs like WordPress sites and stuff like that. And over the course of that career, I've gotten into online marketing, affiliate marketing, and towards the later part of that career, I kind of learned how to code. So these days, I'm basically a full-time developer / domain investor on the side.
In terms of this previous career prior to domain investing, like how, I guess, are we talking 5, 10, 15 years experience?
So I was like self-employed doing that for, let's say about 2006 to about 2015. So maybe about like 10 years.
Okay.
Random
nice.
Self-employment.
Nice. And there's the random horn on the spot. So then in terms of just domain investing, so obviously, I can kind of see how you're doing web development and it's just kind of one of those necessary things of you're dealing with web development. You're obviously going to deal with domains, but in terms of when did the light really go off for you that, oh, wait, hey, there's a whole nother industry and world over here of people that are actually buying and selling and investing in domains as an asset class?
So that light went off probably, around the same time I started, like 2006, 2005. And I tried my hand at quote unquote domain investing, and I looked at some of those names. I made all the mistakes like every people makes, and obviously I didn't sell anything.
What kind of names were you buying?
I can't even remember, but there was the .me sunrise period. So I actually registered a bunch of like good .me names, and I invested like a couple $1,000 in those. I think I sold one eventually, like shirts.me for like $1,000, but that was not enough to cover the cost of all that. So I kind of like fell out of the idea with domaining probably like after like a year or two. But the entire time, like I knew, people buy and sell like really nice names for good amounts of money.
And then when did you get back like serious? So you took some. So obviously you came in. You kind of. We won't say you lost your full shirt, but you certainly lost some sleeves on the shirt,
Yeah.
if not a few buttons. But then you took a little time off, and then when did you actually come back serious? And in addition to coming back serious, like what was your mindset in terms of I failed at this once before, but now I truly want to be all in as a domain investor?
So long story short, the .app registry was doing the whole Sunrise launch or whatever you want to call it. And I started trying to see like what was available, like what I could register like during this time. And I registered a bunch, probably like, I don't know, 50 names or whatever, 100 names. I thought they were decent. And then at a certain point during that like first week or two, I stumbled on DN Academy. And I'm like, what's this? So I stopped doing anything there with the .app stuff, and I went through the DN Academy course. And after that course, I'm like, oh, what did I just do with these .app names? So I realized I wasted my money there. And then after the DN Academy course, I just got into it.
And then what do you think like is the biggest takeaway of DN Academy?
Well, it's not
for you.
DN Academy. It was Domain Sherpa 2.
Domain Sherpa.
Stumbled on that as well and went through all the old episodes, all the portfolio reviews. The main takeaway is just in the back of my, like when I look at a name, I'm like, would Andrew Rosner yell at me for buying this name? I think that's that might be that's not really the main takeaway. The main takeaway is research, like data. Like a lot of people think these are like lottery tickets, like they think they can sell their crappy name for $100,000, $1 million, but the data does not support that. Like there's one-off things that randomly happen, but over time you need data. You need to study data, see what's selling, keep your costs under control, all that.
Now, you have different, domain investors. They invest in different categories of domains. Some are into, short words, so 3-letter or 3-character, 4-letter, 4-character. Some are into the brandables, while others are into geos, and then some are into geo service or geo keyword. And then, you still have others that are into, numerics, and then some are into 2, 3, 4, and some even 5-word domains. Like, where do you find yourself tending to find the most success for you as a domain investor? So
before I wouldn't even know those were like different classes before DN Academy. I know I'm plugging DN Academy a lot here, but Tiger's course is great. Like I can't think of any other industry that has a course like this. Like you can go from like A to Z just like that. So to answer that question, I'm going to say mostly I'm still .com, but I also like to buy .io names, which I stumbled upon from Mike Carson's interviews on Domain Sherpa. So I followed those auctions for a little bit, and once in a while I'd sell a few .io names, and I started pursuing those a lot more. So probably 80% .com, 20% .io.
Bar invests in .io names. Bar makes me so mad. Every time I open Twitter, all I see is Bar's name acquired, whatever the domain was, .io. I'm like, how in the world is Bar able to get his hands on some of these domains? And for a while, man, it would seem like you were on a tear. I mean, you were like every morning, and then it went from like, I'm gonna give you one in the morning, I'm gonna give you one at noon, and then I'm gonna tuck you in at night and tell you I am getting into the .io game and having success doing it. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna stop looking at Twitter right now, because if I try to go out and mimic, that's not gonna be good. And then Bar's gonna be laughing at me all the way to the bank anyway. And so like, how do you get into CC TLDs? And so why not other country code level or country code top level domains? Why not invest in those? I
think my first like major win was Ritual.io. for, I can't remember what I paid, maybe $1.50. And a couple months later, I sold that for, I think, $5,000. So,
Jeez.
yeah.
And wait, you said a couple months?
I think it was a couple months later. It wasn't that long.
Wow.
It wasn't that long. So I think at that point, yeah, I had it for less than a year, maybe like 9 months. So I kind of realized, oh, there's something here. Like, people like .io names, like single one-word .io names. So I started getting into them more heavily.
Now, in terms of, so let's talk a little bit just about like, picking .io names, because to a certain extent, I know that we're going to have listeners that are going to hear this, and guess what they're going to go do? They are going to go over to park.io and they're going to start throwing money at any and everything. So number one, don't go do that. Number two, please do your due diligence. And number three, don't blame Bar or I for any of your misfortune, should that be the case. But if you happen to get successful, you can blame both of us for that. Cash, please.
The problem with Park.io now is the prices have caught up. Like, I guess people have gotten wise to the fact that IO names are pretty good. So the prices, I don't think Ritual.io would sell for $1.50 anymore. Like, that'd be like a $1,500 name at least. So very quickly, the prices have gone way up. Park.io.
Wow. And where now do you see them staying there? Because you've been in, I guess, how long have you been investing in .io? Maybe what, 18 months?
Yeah. And on the note of all the Twitter announcements, like, that was like a year of hard work that I kind of announced over like a couple of weeks. So it wasn't like every day I was fine. That was just like an announcement period, but it took a lot of work to get a lot of those names.
No, and that's actually a great point. It wasn't as if you just woke up every morning, oh, I'm going to buy this domain. I bought it. Next day, oh, I'm going to buy this domain. I bought it. Like you said, it took time to do that. And I think that's one of the things that is missing from the equation often is time, that it takes to become really a person that can identify undervalued digital assets and be able to flip them with consistency, as well as with prudency, as well as achieving a profitability. So in terms of being able to choose, like, when I think about it, I go Ritual. Like, I don't know, that seems a bit risky to me to choose a name Ritual, and it's not a .com and it's in .io. I mean, that seems to be just shouting to me high risk. So, like, what goes through your mind when you see a name like that?
So that's like a two-part answer. For Ritual, that at that time I was looking at ritual.com, ritual.net, ritual.org, and seeing if they were developed. And I think a lot of them actually are. So for whatever it was I paid for, like under $200, I didn't think that was a huge risk. I thought, it was a really good .io name. But since then, like, I've kind of been more meticulous about the actual data that I'm collecting to determine, like, if a word is good. So at that time, I guess Ritual was kind of like a gut instinct, but now I'm a lot more data driven. So I try to look at, what other extensions are developed for sale, like how much love does that keyword have for like trademarks, and on LinkedIn, like, what's the good ad evaluation, estimate evaluation. So just taking all like these data points and coming up with like a estimated guess if I should of how much I should spend.
Right. Now, so one thing of clarity here that just kind of crossed my mind. So did you say virtual with a V or ritual with an R?
Rich.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
At first, I was like, man, did I mishear him? I was like, we're talking about two different domains.
Yeah, Ritual.io would be a baller name, but Ritual.
Oh, man. Well, you're a baller, so, it wouldn't surprise me if I look across Twitter in 6 months and there it is, virtual.io. Bar owns it. Yeah, it's like, shut it down, mic drop, it's over. But that's actually great insight into, that you're using multiple tools, you're using data to really prove. Now, you can't necessarily, be 100%, but it's certainly better than zero of just a blind guess and you're throwing money around. And so it's interesting to often hear domain investors and just their strategies of how they view or how they assess value. And so now in terms of, I guess, obviously we know that you buy domains, you flip them. Now, is there any longevity in terms of long-term investing? Are you investing in domains like that you would just say, hey, I don't care who approaches me, they're not going to get this name for at least 10, 15 years?
I don't necessarily have that. Like, I'm not trying to flip names fast. I am willing to hold on to them for a very long time. But if that, 100x offer comes along, I will absolutely sell the name. I mean, there's a few that I'm holding out for like a good amount of money. But I guess it's more like ROI related than time related.
Gotcha. So it's a matter of, hey, I paid X for this. We've got 10X, 20X on it, and it's not that it's been 2 years, but for you, it's a matter of, does this make the most sense? And I would likely imagine that it also probably, or what plays into this is if there's another asset available that you're like, yeah, I can cash out on this name because it'll help me get this other name, which will then take, it even further into a return on investment. I would assume that would be the case.
I mean, to be honest, I think the time horizon version of waiting is probably the better strategy. I think these assets like appreciate over time. Like, I don't need to sell like any names to live. Like, domaining is not my full-time thing, so I'm in a position to to be able to wait. But if a decent offer comes along, I'll definitely take it. But I'm not interested in 2, 3x. Like, I'd rather focus on those bigger numbers.
Interesting. Now you had a sale that I saw it and I was like, look at my man Bar. It literally made me yell it out loud. Jackpot. That you posted on Twitter that you sold Jackpot.io. I believe it was like what, $48,500, but it was a deal done through Bitcoin, right?
It was a deal done on Dan.com where they paid in Bitcoin.
Okay.
So ultimately, I think it was like 48.5.
Okay, nice. So, I mean, kind of tell us the backstory of, I guess, of how you even stumbled upon purchasing that, but then what was the story behind? Because, I mean, when I think about jackpot.com, I don't even know I know it's millions, but I don't know if we're talking 10 million or if we're talking like voice.com, 30 million, just trying to figure out that valuation for that given .com. And so kind of what played into your mind in terms of how you priced Jackpot.io to sell?
So that particular one, I actually turned down like a few like $10,000 offers. So I brought it up with a little domain group that I'm a part of, and a lot of people were of the mind that that's like a $50,000 to $100,000 name. I'm not like super into gambling names, but it doesn't have to be like a gambling thing. Like jackpot can mean like a lot of cool things. So after that like conversation with people, getting feedback, I was willing to hold out. So this offer came in, I think started at like 10 grand. Actually ended up in my spam folder, so I was really lucky that I found it there. So he came in with 10,000. I did a little lookup and saw he was into Bitcoin or like cryptocurrency. So I think I said this a bunch of times in different interviews, but it's easier to ask for like 7 Bitcoin than $70,000. Mike Carson said that. So I did that. And then we just started negotiating back and forth in BTC. So we eventually closed on 5 BTC. I think the price was like 9,500 at the time. So that's where that number came from.
Interesting. So y'all are just sitting there, he's probably somewhere like 4. You're like 10. He's like 4.5, 8.
Yeah. So
5.
So yeah, he's like, I can do like 1.8 or like 2.2. And I talked to Josh Schoen about this, and he's like, what's with these decimals? Like, do whole numbers. So I'm like, all right, I'm at 5. Like, that's it. That's a price. And then, he eventually emailed me. He's like, all right, let's do it.
Awesome. And so I guess now in terms of your portfolio now, how do you list? Some people use like their own landing pages. In this case, you use Dan, but then I'm assuming that you also list maybe using Afternic Sidu as well.
So I imported that lead through Dan, which knocks the commission down to like 5%. But for these like one word .io names that I have, I use card.co. So I make little custom landing pages with a catch-all email address, which makes it a little less salesy than like a Big Four sales page. Like if somebody actually wants this name, they can take the effort to email me. So that's my strategy.
So I'm assuming that you get a lot of emails in.
I would expect more, but I actually don't get that many emails. Given the amount of names I have. Maybe the Improv MX server is not working correctly.
Exactly. So I mean, you mentioned something there. So where does your portfolio sit in terms of size today?
I think it's like 600 names. Like most of it's .coms that I get through GoDaddy auctions or NameJet auctions. A few private ones, and I think, probably like 100 .io names. I would like to have a lot less because I do have some bad ones to make up for all the pretty good ones, and they're expensive to renew, so got to keep the cost down.
And so in a given month, I mean, how many domains do you say that you sell, or what is your, not only how many domains would you sell, but then how many domains do you purchase? So what's that look like?
So if we're being honest, I feel like around me is crushing it. Meanwhile, I'm over here. I've only had 6 sales this year. It's like maybe one every like 6 weeks. Like you hear about everybody on Twitter and our domain groups. Everybody's crushing it, but I'm over here. I got this massive Jackpot.io sale, but it's crickets.
He said Texas-sized crickets. No, and it's interesting because obviously now we have to start talking about what is the grade of that domain, while at the same time also considering what is the asking price. So you have somebody like a Yogi Solanki who is likely purchasing domains sometimes upwards, at least anywhere from $0 upwards, to probably $50, maybe $150, but he's quick to purchase that, reset it at something like $350, $500, and he flips it. And so, of course, he's out there, sometimes selling 1 to 2 domains daily. Whereas I would imagine that you probably spend most of your time pricing things well within the 4 and 5 figure range.
Yeah, that's correct. I don't think it'd be worth it for me to do that strategy, which is totally fine strategy for people who want to hustle, make a good amount of money, just, out of thin air, if you will. But I don't have that kind of time. I'm fully employed, have a kid. So I'm taking this slow roll to domain sale.
Now, do you do any outbound by chance?
I have not done any of that yet. No.
Because you're tied up in terms of work and also family. You're a family man as well, and so I mean, there's probably only a few hours, I imagine, in a given day, if that, to be able to actually focus on auctions, decide what you're going to buy, or research it, and cast your proxy bid or whatever accordingly.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like I can't spend the whole day hustling, few $100 domains, even though that's a great strategy for a lot of people. I just, wouldn't work for me.
Wow. And so then in terms of how do you limit, I mean, you talked a bit about how you use data to limit, but in terms of like, how do you keep from becoming aggressive or emotionally charged in terms of some of the auctions?
I can't say that's true because sometimes I do get emotionally charged. So my system that I've come up, well, this is kind of based on Mike Seiger's DN Academy like valuation thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually do that for every domain I buy. It's kind of like just doing it off the top of my head. I have a more like accurate system for these single word.io names, but for like auctions, it's a little bit of research. I should definitely be doing more research before buying some of these names.
But what then? So in that split second decision of a moment, then why you should be doing that research? Like, how do you pull that trigger of going, no, I'm going to go ahead and do this, just because I know that at least, for the ones that you actually do the due diligence for, let's just say that, you have a likelihood of 90% of being correct in terms that you could probably bring or flip at minimum 5x. Whereas these ones that you don't do the necessary research for, you kind of like, well, for instance, for me, there are certain domains that I can just look at and go, no, I can go and develop a site on that, and I actually do it, versus just saying, I can develop a site on that, buy it, and then it just kind of sits there. Like, how do you make that distinction of knowing on the split second, yes, this is something that's good to purchase, and then make good on that?
Yeah, so I think over the course of 2 years, I've kind of developed this instinct when I used to do the research, more effectively.
Mm-hmm.
But also, as a developer, sometimes I definitely have bought names where I'm like, worst case scenario, I can develop this one out. So yeah, in the split second, like, I don't know, I've tried to calm down a little bit in the auctions because the prices these days have gotten quite high, and I can't afford to spend like several like $1,000 a day on some of these mediocre domains. Like, so I don't know. It's kind of like gut instinct. Sometimes I really like the name just for like a few different reasons. And like towards like the last few minutes, if I really like the name, I'll just start doing like research hard, and that'll kind of like persuade me whether to keep going or to bail out.
Gotcha. So then now, for some people, they're like, man, I'm just into brandables. So I'm assuming that you're into both brandables and keyword domains.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
He's like, I don't know about that one.
I mean, let me look. Let's do it live.
And so, because the interesting thing is, because I know that there are just, there's certain phrases that I see and I go, you know what, I'll grab that if it goes into reverse auction. But other than that, I'm not gonna mess with it. Do you use services like Squad Help, Brand Bucket, Brand Root?
I do not, but I'm hearing like a lot of talk about what Squad Help is doing, so I might give that a go. A lot of people seem to be having success with that. I never personally liked Brand Bucket. They just took way too long to review. I didn't like paying $1, waiting like 2 months to see exclusivity. I don't know. I just having my own landing pages with Dan much easier to do.
Right.
Squad Help seems to be very good at marketing domains, so I'm going to wait and see what people are doing with that.
Interesting. So then, in terms of like where the industry's going, so I mean, we've got a couple things that are going on in terms of, as of recent, we have .vc domains, we have .gg domains, kind of all flying around. I mean, kind of, what do you make of this moment, this hour in time that folks are
all right,
general having sales?
.gg, could be a big thing. The thing with .io is like it has the sales history. Like, there's data there to prove that these names sell, like day after day. .co names have data. .gg, that's a flyer. Like, you don't know if that's going to be popular 5 years from now, but the way the trend of like gaming is going, then maybe. .vc, I hand registered a few of those, but that's hard to say with that one. It's definitely a flyer. .ai, so they have the .ai auctions that Park.io powers, and the prices of those for like investor level pricing are insane. These are like $5,000 to $10,000 people are paying for .ai names.
Wait, what?
So there's like a private auction every month for .ai names, and literally all of them are just thousands of dollars.
So it's like a whole new investment, I guess, group of investors that are driving these in.
Yeah, I mean, somebody knows something that we don't, but I don't understand. Like, hold on, I'm trying to look at the prices. So yeah, Think.ai sold for $22,000 on this auction platform. Like, is that an end user? Maybe. Golf.ai sold for $11,000. Is that an end user or investor? Like, I don't know. Like, these are way too high for like investor level pricing for me. So I have a few like hand registered like .ai names, but I'm not going to go pay thousands of dollars for these. I'd rather do that with .io, which I know. So
interesting. Now, Bar, how do you handle renewals?
I pay them.
Ta-da, ching, we got it. You pay them. So, but then how do you plan for them?
So I think I picked this up from you, where I think you won't buy a name unless you can hold on to it for like at least 3 years. So every time a renewal comes up these days for like anything, I'll just renew it out like 3 years, just get it out the way. I don't drop a lot, but I'm starting to. Like, I want to cull my portfolio a little bit because these are like the early on names that I first started. So they're starting to come up and like, oh, why did I even buy that? But, I feel like if you're going to spend like $50, $100 on a name, give it a shot for 3 to 5 years. Because this is like a long-term game. Like, you got to watch these assets appreciate.
Oh, totally. And things change so instantly. It was like in the recording I released today, or rather the podcast episode I released today with Riz, he was talking about how he purchased supertravel.com at $2,500 before the pandemic happened. Obviously, pandemic hits, travel industry goes right down the drain, and yet he winds up selling it for $15,000. And so it's some of this stuff. There are things and factors that we can control, but there are a lot more external factors that can wreak havoc or play into our favor. And so like I guess in terms of your portfolio management strategy, I mean, how do you try to hedge for economic downturn, like in terms of your buying and selling?
I think one is just keep the portfolio small. I don't have any plans to get to like thousands of names. That's just not my strategy. And I want to say Riz he's quite the hustler. Like, he does the flipping stuff on a much bigger scale, like larger numbers. But he doesn't like sit around and wait for these names to sell. Like, he contacts people. He tries to get them moving. So he's definitely one of the people that will take a smaller ROI, but
right.
It's still like a lot of money at that level. Like, you can flip $1,000 name into 5,000. That's worth it for him. So yeah, to mitigate risk, I just keep the portfolio small. Try not to spend too much, and just try to focus on the ones I have.
Now, do you find yourself? I know you said you participate in auctions. Do you find yourself hand raising names as much, or are you really strictly auctions?
Yeah, I don't hand register a lot. Unless it's like a good idea that like comes into my head,
I only laugh because I go, oh shoot, I'm in trouble because I have all these ideas that are even coming in my head as we're recording this podcast. I'm like, step away from the keyboard.
Yeah. If there's like a promo, maybe I'll register a few. But I know people that definitely have a success with like hand registered, but that's like a totally different game. Like, once again, like, people can register a bunch of names for like a few bucks, flip them on name pros for like 50, and that you feed your family that way. It's just too much work for me. Like,
right.
There's so many different types of domains. There's so many different like strategies that you can focus on or like excel in. So I'm just trying to find my own little lane and get good at it.
And now in terms of looking at the macro level, like, how many in your thoughts, if you had to guess, how many people do you think are actually domain investing worldwide? If you had to guess,
1,000, 2,000.
Okay, so you thinking 1,000, 2,000? Gotcha. Do you think that number is growing over time as things like, obviously, like the domain show, as it goes virtual, as NameCon goes virtual, and the like?
I mean, if it weren't for like DN Academy or Domain Sherpa, I wouldn't be in this. So I would think so. Yeah, I think it's growing over time.
Now, what do you, in terms of your advice, just for those who are thinking about, entering in, like, what would be your first, thing that you would tell them? And I think I know what your answer is, but what would you, where do they need to start? Bare bones basics.
All right. So I think you know what my answer will be, but there's a free version of this answer. So if you go to domainsherpa.com and you go through all the old episodes and like listen to those before you even buy a single name, that's a great like free education. Obviously, like, some of that information has changed. Like, some of the strategies don't work, but overall, the general consensus is you'll be able to like pick out much better names, especially for like the older portfolio reviews. Like, there were some crappy portfolios, and they were honest about it. Like, I'm good. So that's one free way. A lot of people say go to Name Pros and read everything there. I don't agree with that. Like, there's too much noise on Name Pros. Like, you can get this education like much quicker on domain. And if you want to get it even quicker, pay Mike Seiger, his $250 or whatever for DN Academy, and you will be a pretty good domainer after like a few weeks.
And he's been and definitely keep me honest here. He actually updates that from time to time too. It's not just a one and you're done.
Yeah, no, he has I think an accelerated course that he's doing. I got kicked out of that week 1 because I didn't do the homework. But
Come on, Bar. Wait, you got kicked out.
I wanted to do the course again just for like a refresher because, I was being a little willy-nilly with my auctioning. So I joined that and then didn't do the homework and got kicked out. Oh, dang. But yeah, I check in there like every couple of weeks, and there's always like new stuff being added, so he keeps it updated. But even still, like even if it was never updated again, like there's a lot of great information in there.
Now, Bar, if you had somebody that you wanted to, sit down with, that you really just said, hey, man, if I only had one person to choose from the industry to sit down with to actually take my game to the next level, who would that person be and why?
I would say Kate Buckley. Her ability, like I don't know what she does, but she must be coming up with some like great presentation or great PowerPoint or flash video or something. I don't know what she's doing. But she's able to sell like decent names, like greenstreet.com for like 100K. And I have like a good amount of those kind of names, like these like middle of the road, pretty good names that, could fetch like a good amount of money, have like if I put the work into it. But, I can't just be like contacting random people, but like, hey, you want to buy this name? Like, I'm pretty sure she has a much more refined strategy than that. So I would ask her all those questions like, yo, what are you doing? What's your secret sauce? So that's the first person that came to my head.
Well, Kate, if you're listening, hey, here it is. We got an opportunity. We got an opportunity for a quick Zoom call.
Let me get my one-on-one coaching, please.
That is awesome. Yeah, Kate Buckley, she actually gave a great presentation during the domain show, just in regards of what it means to sit or learn to sit in the buyer seat when you as a seller are representing a domain that is about to be purchased or a domain that you're attempting to sell. Like, one of the things that she said was obviously showing up is a bit of the equation, a lot of the equation in terms of positioning oneself, but as well as just positioning that domain. And so she certainly is a wealth and a fountain of just knowledge and wisdom for doing exactly what you just said. You're taking names, but with every name, it's like with her, I just feel like every name has a unique story, and she's able to tap into what that unique story is and who their unique owners are and aligning them to a point that, shoot, I'm like, man, she could sell. Yeah, I'm like, she could sell, a lake to you, and it's just like, oh, well, she's selling water from the lake. You could easily go down there, dip your cup in the water, but you're like, no, I'm buying from Kate. So she just has that magnetic personality that just puts you at ease with knowing, like, yeah, you know what? That's a brand that I think, yeah, that matches me. That's who I am. So hats off to Kate, and I actually do hope that Kate is listening and that she hears this, and hopefully, Bart, you get an hour of time, to be able to chat with her.
There were two other good talks regarding like outbound and selling. It's, I forget how to say his last name, Zeiker from Media Options. He had a good one. Recommended some good books there.
Yeah, Chris Zeiker.
Yeah, Chris Zeiker, and Jason Eisler also had a good one that kind of motivated me to like think about spending more time on the actual outbounding of these names and less time and money on the acquiring of the names. Because acquiring, like, you can acquire all the names in the world, but if you don't start like moving some of them at a decent price, decent ROI, then you fizzle out.
You will run out of money.
Especially with the way these
point.
prices are going at auction, like Park and GoDaddy, like it's ridiculous. I don't know how people are doing this. Like spending a lot of money on these names that are just kind of like mediocre. So I want to focus a little more on outbounding and outreach. So those 3 talks were really good.
Interesting. And Bar, you hit on something there that and this is what makes me truly believe about the industry, that the industry is actually growing, because to a certain extent, you're right. Like, prices can't keep doing what they're doing. And for them to keep doing what they're doing, it leads me to believe more and more people are getting involved, whether they're, showing their faces at conferences, online or in person, or even on the blogs or forums. But it leads me to believe that more and more money is coming into the domain market and segments. And that's why we're seeing this great price increase.
No, you're not wrong.
I mean, that's the only thing that I can, that I can even make sense of, is that that's the case. But like with everything else, at some point, what goes up must come down. And so, for me, I don't participate in many of the auctions these days just because I'm like, man, the party cannot keep going. At some point, it will fall out. And so for me personally, I don't really even spend my time even buying domains, because I've got a system that I check names every night. I put out a domain name list, and as well as, I put my own domains in that I want to be able to catch before they go into reverse auction. And so that, I put those names in. If I get them, I get them. If I don't, I don't. But, it's like, man, that's kind of where I spend, most of my time. Now, I guess have you ever developed any domains or no?
So I have medschools.com, which I was supposed to develop with somebody, but I kind of dropped the ball on actually developing it out. There's another one like fasting.net, which I bought with a plan of developing it.
Man, that's a good one.
Yeah, because fasting.com I think sold for like $60,000 like the month before. Then this one expired, so I'm like, all right, let me get the next best fasting related name.
Right.
It's kind of like an interesting aspect of health that
right
getting into. How do you sell not eating? I don't know.
Well, I mean, and not only that, I mean, there is a religious aspect to it as well. So you have religious entities and everything else, and that are around that. But you're right, in terms of health, it is, because I think it's what they call it, like intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
To where you're doing sometimes 24, 36 hours without not eating, or eating only certain hours of the day, or certain times of the day. So, but no, that's a great name.
To answer your question, no, I've not actually developed any of these out. Every domainer has grand plans of developing, but stick to this or stick to developing. Like it's very hard to go in between, like the amount of time involved. I'm sure
I'm a unicorn. I'm a unicorn.
Some people like what's his name? Vidalia Onions guy.
Oh, Peter.
Yeah, Peter. Like he does a great job, like picking out like, diamonds and just making them very, very shiny. But he's not out there buying like hundreds of names and being like, oh, I'll develop this one, that one. Like he's very meticulous about the names he wants to develop. So I guess, that it is possible. It's just, if I'm being honest, like I'm more of a domainer than developer.
No, and that's good. And so, Bar, wrapping up, man, like what would be your advice, to domain investors that right now they're finding themselves investing in domains that are, probably less than $100 for the ones that they find, or they're hand registering domains, and they're trying to break the barrier to get beyond like 3-figure sales and get into those 5-figure sales? Like, what would be your advice for them in terms of how to shift their mindset towards leaving the domains that they are registering behind and setting their sights on domains that have the value to get into that 5-figure range or more?
So I think I don't make a lot of 5-figure sales. Like that was my only 5-figure sale so far. Hopefully there'll be more, maybe 6-figure sales, but
speak it into existence.
Like maybe like focus on like smaller ROI, like try to turn like you got to spend money to make money. Like you're not going to turn a $5 name into like 5,000 that easily, but you can turn like a $500 name into like 1,500. Like if you do the research, like go slow, really like research stuff out. And a good piece of advice I heard, I guess, is try to like think of all the reasons to not buy a name instead of like all the reasons to buy a name. Like try to talk yourself out of buying stuff. So that way, like when you actually buy something, like there's a lot of good aspects behind it. So try to, I don't know, like try to turn a $500 name to like $2,000, take that 2,000, turn it into like 5,000. Like if you really want to hustle, I think people can do that. I'm more of like a buy and hold kind of guy, and there's hustlers that, you know, sell the $10 names for 300, but I think there's like also a happy medium somewhere in there. So don't spend too much money, spend a lot of time trying to sell the names, and that's it.
Indeed, that is it. And so, Bar, I mean, is there anything else that you'd like to share with listeners in terms of, hey, how they can get in contact with you if they had questions about, you know, anything that you said during this podcast?
Just my Twitter, PPCBZ.
Get it right, Alvin. Get it right.
I was gonna say, I like where the domain industry is going. Like, there's a lot of new podcasts. There's Josh's podcast, the Broadcast.
Yeah. What is it? Josh.co, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Keith's new podcast. Like, I used to listen to like a lot of sports podcasts, but now I listen to all domain podcasts. So there's a lot of good information out there, like free, paid. Like this didn't exist like 5-10 years ago. If it existed 10 years ago, I'd probably be quite wealthy these days.
Totally. I recommend, like I said, everybody's podcast. If you're, you know, like Bar said with Josh.co, Keith is like Brandable Insider, but there's a little trickiness about the insider part, if I remember correctly. There's also Andrew Alleman over at domainnamewire.com, or if you go to dnw.com. Who else? Yeah, Domain Sherpa is out there.
Kickstart Commerce.
Oh yeah, Kickstart.fm. You can.
Chris Zeiker has a podcast.
You know, Journey. Exactly. Chris does. I think Alan Dunn did.
He did.
But I'm not. I mean, it's still there, but there hadn't been any new content. So, Alan, if you're listening, please, we're begging you. We're wanting to. What do they call it? Co-opetition. There it is. Not necessarily competition, but co-opetition, you know, because I think that all of us doing this, one, creates greater awareness for the industry, and brings folks into a way to, you know, not only make money, but really change the course in life for their generation and generations to come. Just because obviously we see with the pandemic, when you look at what has happened, everything made a major shift towards online. And fortunately, all of us, we were there when this thing happened. And so it's like there's no telling what's next for us, but likely is the case that we're going to stay online for for the foreseeable future, as well as probably have some innovative things happen, especially in the area of like conferences, which, like I said, with NamesCon coming up, hey, NamesCon didn't pay me to say this, but everybody needs to get there if you can. So with that, we're out of time. So Bar, man, hey, thank you again for joining us today and sharing your domain investing journey, man.
All right, no problem. See you in Asheville 2021, 22.
Hopefully, or online, you know. Hey, do you attend? You probably don't attend the domain social, do you?
I do sometimes.
Okay. Which I think, well, wait a minute. Is it kicking off? Yeah, I think it's about to kick off either pretty soon or now, as we're recording this. So, but like I said, with that, we're out of time. So thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Kickstart Commerce, where we share search marketing and domain name strategies to help grow your business. Please subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or Podbean. And last but not least, please visit kickstartcommerce.com to subscribe to the newsletter sharing tips and tricks about the disciplines of digital strategy. Thanks, and that's all for now.